Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ian Miller. Tonight we have a very good guest over on our show. Why don't you introduce yourself to our fans?
My name is Chris Sahloff. I am creator of the comic book C.R.I.T, Constantly Running Into Trouble, publisher for Homebrewed Comics, where we have Bigfoot Knows Karate, C.R.I.T, Caspian Porter, Celestial Knight, and Tin Can, all of which are currently available, and two Kickstarter campaigns running right now, actually.
Fantastic. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you here. And I've been looking at your Kickstarter. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I have to ask, obviously, my first question to new guests is, how did you get started in writing?
So I don't write traditionally like anybody else in comics. Every one of my issues is a recording of our Dungeons and Dragons. We play superhero D&D. And I just record the session. I'm the game master. I record it. I take the recording. I listen to it for a whole month. I dissect it, and then I kind of sketch out what I believe the flow is. And so I take those storyboards and send them to my guys. And after they say, "Yeah, that's about how I remember it. That sounds good," I'll draw the page, and that's kind of the whole process. So everything that you see happened at the table. Everything you read was said by the players, whether they want to argue with me or not. I have the recordings and the receipts, and so it's just different than what a typical writer would do, which is jot down the ideas, have an editor come in, go back and forth. I keep it as raw as possible because the purpose of this is to capture that tabletop element and that camaraderie that friends have when they play an RPG. Yeah. So when people ask me what's this like, I'm like, well, just imagine you and your friends sitting there and playing as superheroes. That dialogue is very familiar. The interactions are organic. So when you see like Caliber and Boulder, they've probably been friends in real life the longest, and they will bicker and they will banter and they will argue just like your like friends do, and that's real. Like there's a scene in issue 2 where they catch the bad guy at the end, and Caliber is negotiating with him. And this guy shot Boulder 5 times, and Boulder is holding a grudge. And this happened in the game. They rolled to see who could talk first, and Caliber won. He's a high charisma character, and he's essentially Don Corleone. He's like, you're going to owe me a favor later on. And Boulder walks up and he literally says, "You're really going to Don Corleone him?" And he's like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "He shot at me 5 times." And that whole argument actually happened at the table because Caliber was rolling to do this like counter roll with me, and they just get into it. And they're arguing at the table. And I'm sitting here listening to the recording, and I'm like, this has to go in there because, I couldn't write that myself. There's one of my favorite scenes in all of my books is in issue 4. This happened right at our table, and it didn't get fixed when we were actually making the book, because after I draw the book, I take all the dialogue and I put it in a Word document, panel by panel. I break it down. And then we sit for 2 nights on Discord. We have 2 screens up. We have the comic book and we have the script, and we go panel by panel. And we read all that dialogue to clean it up, because sometimes you'll get repetitive, right? Like we're all at the same table. We're all high energy. So sometimes some of that dialogue will get repetitive, and we want to clean it up for the reader. But everything's been said. So that's really what we do. And that takes about 2 days to go through, read it, refine it, make sure it looks good. But again, we don't rewrite anything really. We might fix some of the verbiage here and there, but we try to keep it as raw as possible. So even if you read somebody say something wrong, that's how they talk in real life. So maybe their grammar isn't always proper. But we were working on issue 4, and when we were playing the game, they were driving their van into battle. They were high speed, running. They get this notification, oh, there's this thing happening, and they get in the van, they take off, and they're like, well, we need a theme song, and they're arguing over what theme song to play. And so in their head in the game, they're just all playing a different song. Well, we get to the book, and I'm like, well, we need to pick a song, and we still couldn't pick it. And I, they while we were writing, I said, hey guys, we've spent like 30 minutes on this again, arguing. I just put insert song in brackets, and I said, we'll come back to it. So we get all the scripting, we get to the writing, and that night's over. Next day, we go back, we read the script, and we get to insert song, and it's like the dialogue is like, oh, I'm going to play insert song, and insert song is the best song ever. And it's like every other line is like insert song, and just because it was repeated so many times, we were dying laughing. And then one guy was like, I don't even know what insert song is, and he's like, how do you not know what insert song is? And it's like it allowed the reader to put their favorite song in that line. But to us, we were just dying laughing again at the fact that we couldn't agree on it. And like, we're like, do we want to keep insert song there? And I'm like, we have to, because if we're laughing this hard, someone's going to laugh at this. You know, I want to leave those moments where you're like, oh, that was good. And that might be my favorite one, because that transcends just the tabletop. That goes into the writing. Like, you know, we're still ourselves when we're doing this editing process, and we're keeping that raw emotion and dialogue for everybody. So one thing as a writer that is tough is putting your shoes in these characters and trying to imagine yourself doing this. I don't have to do that because I have my friends who are these characters, you know? And the way I set this up, it wasn't create a character. It was, you are the character. You know, you go to work one day, this happens. Now all of a sudden you have superpowers. What do you do? Not what does this character do? What do you do? Because it makes role play very easy, especially we haven't played in like 10 years. So trying to get people back in and comfortable role playing, you know, hey, you're this dwarf and you come from this village, and just imagine all this stuff. Like, it's hard to get into those shoes real quick. I wanted the campaign to take off and be interesting and people not to lose, you know, love for their character. The best way to do that is say, this is you. Here's the superpower that you want. Now you have it. What do you do? And that's kind of how we ran with it. And we played this game for the better part of 5 years. And, you know, we've moved on to Warhammer now. We're playing a Warhammer RPG. Hence why I have like so many D6s in my hand, and I have Warhammer everywhere in my house now because Warhammer's taken over. But, you know, when you're trying to get your friends together and just have fun, the best way to do it is like give them true escapism. You as a superhero here. And so I like to tell everybody, when you're reading the dialogue, when you're reading all this stuff, this isn't hours and hours and hours of me trying to create a character. I'm just capturing my friend in like his rawest form while playing a game.
I like that. I'm not sure if you know this, but you're actually the second person that came on my show where, you know, they were creating a comic out of their Dungeons and Dragons. You know.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I know of one other guy.
Yeah.
DM Ray.
That's him.
Yeah. I will say I've been doing it for 5 years. Now, there's no competition with that. He is in a fantasy world, and I love Ray, and we get along really great.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to see more tabletop games turned into comic books, because every single one of us nerds that's been doing this since we were little kids is like, I want this to be a cartoon. I want this to be a book. I want this to be a comic book. And, you know, when you say, oh, this is based off of D&D, it's hard because, you know, you're one of few people that do it, but the more common it gets, the less barrier you're going to have when you're pitching to somebody and they're like, oh, this is a game. No, it's based off of the game. So like the writing is very organic.
Yeah.
I say it because I want people to know, like, this isn't my brainchild. Now, given I create the world, I create the situations, and I create a lot of that stuff, but everything's determined by the dice, and it's my 5 idiot friends having fun. So, and I'm the biggest idiot of them all, so I can say
it. I was about to say.
Well, when people ask me, so what character are you? And I'm like, I'm the one trying to kill them.
Oh my god, that's perfect.
Like, so what do you do? I try to actively kill my friends once a month.
Oh, oh my god. Oh, but this is fantastic. Taking actual you know sessions where you guys are playing the game and just turning the conversations, because again you're being very organic and turning it into this comic is it's very refreshing to see something like that.
Thank you. Um, I would say to anybody that's on the fence, for one, you can download issue 0 for free. It's absolutely free on our website, homebrewedcomics.com. Check it out, see if it's your thing. But I like to tell people, I'll be 42 in a few months. It's Police Academy with superpowers. If Police Academy outdates you, it's the other guys with superpowers. It's a buddy cop, movie. If pick your favorite buddy cop movie and give them superpowers, and that's really what Crit is. It's a lot of fun. There's in the issue that we have on Kickstarter, I'll kick into that, is called He Who Would Be King. And so I finally bring in King Arthur into this universe, and I've been wanting for 5 years to tell everybody this is an Arthurian superhero tale. It is, but it took 8 issues to get King Arthur in there. So, I'll just drop that now. I can finally start marketing my book the correct way and tell everyone Arthurian superheroes. King Arthur is the first superhero. We dive into kind of some of his story. It's not the whole thing because he is a main player in the background and the foreground. He is quite a large character in the universe, but it's the introduction of him and some of the things that he's done. So, and it's told from a different perspective than the players. Every book up until now has been from their perspective, and every book up until this one has been, righteous indignation, caffeinated chaos. This is the first one with a different title. It's also the first book without Crit on the front. So, yes, it is a completely different book from the rest. It's a different way of storytelling. If you've played D&D or any kind of tabletop game, this is a role play session, not a combat session. So there is combat in the book, but it's all King Arthur's combat. It's a telling of some of his things. And so you get more of a role play from Crit, and you get the action from the story they're being told.
That's impressive.
Thank you. When I was planning this book, I was actually very nervous because I was like, I've never done this before. I haven't done this type of story. I don't know how it's going to go. And so I wanted a different approach from the very beginning. I wanted everything to be different and not what you've seen so far, because even like the art style that I'm going with is big, but it's more of a flowing organic instead of action, like edgy kind of. I always go for very charismatic, very, very action oriented art. I'm a 90s kid. I grew up on big pouches, big muscle, and I'll let you finish the rest. And with Crit, it's always just been, even when they're talking, they're very animated in how they talk and how they move and how they act. This one is going to be very reserved on the Crit side. And so I wanted the King Arthur stuff to really feel bigger and bigger than life. Some of it is overlapping art on top of each other, things I've just never really dabbled with. But I want the storytelling to reflect the fact that this is a different take. Every book I approach a little bit differently as far as like directing. So I see it as like a cartoon in my head. And I've always been a film nerd, and I actually live with a producer. And we've been friends for like 25 years. So I've picked her brain throughout the years, and I've watched her work. I did a little bit of, not acting, but fill in and all that background stuff. So like I've always been interested in film.
Yeah.
So every book kind of has a different approach to it with how I go in. And it was issue 3 is actually, they're sitting there telling the story as a debrief. So it flips. they'll go into this conversation and they'll banter for a bit, and then it's like, okay, so what happened next? And then they'll tell their part of the story. And because they were all kind of like split up in different groups, so instead of me drawing this is happening and this is happening and this is happening and doing narration, I let them narrate their own story. So I pictured like
Wow.
a police procedural where like this predates what is it, the Rookie, but they do
Yeah.
an episode every once in a while where they're getting interviewed by the TV and they tell a story, and it's very similar to that where they're getting an interview and they're giving their perspective. But then there was a part in the game where they were like Caliber and Boulder were telling a portion of the story, and someone sarcastically was like, "No, that didn't happen. You know, you walked in and threw a grenade." And then the guy, "No, no, no. He totally went in there like dual guns blasting." Because Caliber was like, "No, we effectively like breached the door," and he's like doing this because in real life he's a cop. So like, and
Yeah.
he's giving a very like detailed perspective, and it's very professional. And then the other guy's like, "No, you didn't do that. You kicked the door in, dual guns, blasting everybody." And the other guy's like, "No, you know that he just had Boulder punch the door down and then he threw a grenade in the room." And so what I did was I contacted a couple different artists and I said, "Here's my panel. Can you draw this in your perspective, same layout, just having Caliber in a different pose?"
Yeah.
So I drew him with like one gun coming around the corner, very professional.
Yeah.
The other guy drew him throwing a grenade, and the other guy drew him like sloppily shooting two guns. And so you get three different perspectives of the same story because that happened, at the table. And it was a fun little thing that I put in there, but from a storytelling perspective, it changes it up a little bit. And there's product placement. They always have some, not every book because it doesn't always fit what I'm trying to do, but like there was a shoe ad that they did for themselves, an energy drink ad they did for themselves, a networking ad that one of them did, and like it's just there's so much tongue-in-cheek humor because that's what we do. We get together and we have fun, and there's no undertones, no heavy-handed with anything. It is real world, but early on when we were talking about how we wanted the world to be and the story to be, you got to think we did play this through COVID. We started late 2018. We actually started in 2018 playing. I didn't work on the comic book until 2019, 2020. I didn't know how to draw either. Like I actually taught myself how to draw so I could do this book. So when you see the art, I literally was learning how to do every single panel while I was doing it.
Wow.
But we lived through some really tough times, and we all have different backgrounds, and not all of us agreed all the time, but we are still friends. Like we can have different opinions on things and still be friends.
Yeah.
But we agreed when we played anything that was going on in the real world would not make it into the game because this was our escape. And I'm really
Yeah.
big on, especially comic books and like this medium being a way to escape. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to do that, but I think for our story, I want it to be fun. I want it to be this way of people just opening up a book, having fun, and enjoying it for what it is, and then going back. Like I said, I grew up in the 90s. Comics were just big guns, big muscles. You can fill in the rest, and just a lot of fun storytelling. I do believe we do it a little bit better than some of the 90s guys because it's 5 different writers on one book. So you get a lot of different perspective. You get a lot of like two of my players they went to school for teaching. So like different things. So they have a lot of educational background. And getting them to come in and be editors with me has been great. They know a lot about storytelling that I didn't even think of. So when we go into it, comics is a very unique medium. You have visual storytelling, you have the read word, and then you have the imagination as well, because in between panels, that reader is filling in their head. How'd you get from this point to this point? This isn't a film where they're just directed every single place. It's like they've got to fill in some of that. And so we like to show, don't tell, don't show, and then sometimes just drop a hint and let you figure it out. So there's a lot of to me, it's very fun to be able to put this together in a medium that really appeals to so many different people.
That's true, and I do agree that comics is a form of escape, especially from reality, especially with a very different world. And when you just go into a comic like yours, the audience can get just sucked in and say, "Wow, this is very involved. This is very exciting." You know, just take them a moment out of their day and just enjoy. What I think is a pure, entertainment.
And that's what I want it to be. Um, Dennis, who does Celestial Night, he read
Mhm.
issue 2, and we were friends for maybe about a year now at that point. And
Yeah.
he had backed the Kickstarter, he got it, and he called me. He's like, "I need another issue 2," and I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, I got to the shoe ad, and I threw the book because I was laughing so hard." You know, and those are those stories I just love. When our fun stupidity can make someone laugh so hard they throw something. Um, and I have a 15-year-old daughter, and when I first
Mhm.
started doing this, she was 10. So issue 2 came out 21, so she was 11 years old. And as soon as I got them in, she wants to read my book. So I'm in my office and I hear her just laughing, and she's like, "I'm gonna hit him over and over and over again." She's just reading this line and she's laughing because what's happening in the book. And she knows my friends, and she's been in the room when we play, and so
Yeah.
she gets it. But you know, when a kid who's 11 years old can still find the same thing funny as a 40-year-old man, you know, I think like we're doing something right. And
Yeah.
and that's what hit me. I was like, well, I want to continue doing this. My kid enjoys it, my friends enjoy it. And there's a big dynamic change between a 11-year-old little girl and a 40-year-old man, and they still find the same thing funny. And these aren't, my daughter, yeah, she listens and everything else, but she'll be the first one that looks at something that I like and go, "That's dumb." Like there's things that, and she doesn't mean it meanly, but it's like,
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with that. I tried to show her the old He-Man, and she was like, that's old. We're not watching that. um, try to get her into some of my old cartoons, and she's like, "Can we not? Like, let's just not." She likes Modern Family more than she likes old Thundercat. Anyway,
Oh, correct.
so, but like her interests, while
Mhm.
similar, and she does love some nerdy things, they're very different than me and my friends who like action and comedy and anime and stuff like that. And that just hit me. And her friends read the book and they like it. There was a young kid on Instagram. His dad hit me up and was like, "My kid loves it." My friends, they'll send me pictures of their kids reading the books, and I'm like, see, that's cool because I get pictures of kids reading it, and then I get adults that tell me, "Oh, this was funny." So there's enough in there to appeal to both, age groups, which is kind of what comics were in the 90s to me.
That's true.
You could pick up X-Men as a kid and love it because whatever, maybe like Wolverine, Gambit. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody like Cyclops back in the day. Um, you know, he was the dad of the group. Nobody liked him. But then you had older guys who were reading the comics and enjoying them because Chris Claremont is a great writer.
Yeah.
So I think that's important when we're working on comic books, is to not necessarily worry about one age group or like what you like specifically, but making it very broad range so multiple people can get into it. Because I do think there's something to be said about how manga has overtaken American comics, and that storytelling aspect's there because it's very character driven.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what Crit is. It's very character driven, especially the first chapter. When I was reading and putting those books together, I always knew when I started this comic, the first chapter of this will always be very Crit heavy. Everything's from their perspective. If they don't know it, you don't know it. Um, it's a lot of that. Here are my characters. Get invested in my characters. What I've read in a lot of indie books is here's my world, here's this, here, like overfeeding your audience. In the first book, I've read some and I've been like, you could have 3 books here. You know, give me this right here first, then give me this. You know, the attention span of someone reading a comic book is not the same attention span of someone reading a novel. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, show don't tell, tell don't show. You've got to play that balance there. And also, like, leave some stuff in your back pocket. I've been wanting for 5 years to tell people about King Arthur. I literally could have said in the first issue, because he's been around this entire time, you just don't know it. And I could have put him somewhere in the book just to toss him in there so people go, oh, that's King Arthur, you know. But I was like, I don't really want to do that because that takes away from C.R.I.T. The minute you put a big name in there, you know, I could, if I threw Cthulhu in there randomly, it's like, oh my gosh, Cthulhu's in this book. You know, just, I wanted it to be very focused and heavily centered on my characters, so you would be able to choose one that you like Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
You know, you follow Ninja Turtles, yeah, they have some cool side characters, but it's always Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And you find the one that you like. And so that's what the storytelling was in the very beginning. Now I get to go into world building, you know, showing you different parts of New Orleans. I get to show you different parts of even the country, like they go to Georgia. They get to go to Japan for one issue. Reach does drop an LSD bomb by accident and it sets off, and then it's going to actually another artist is going to take over that book. And I want to draw it. So like I draw the first few pages until Reach drops the bomb. And this happened all at the table. And so the comic book was already in production by the time we were working on this game. And everyone's getting off their transport and they're like, okay, well, we're going to go do this thing. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, what are you guys bringing? Because if you play D&D, you know, you always say like, what are you bringing? And everyone's giving me like their list, and Reach is like, well, I'm going to bring these. And I'm like, you've never made them. Like, and he lists the materials. Really, it's just LSD. I'm just going to be, but he broke it down scientifically. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you're bringing LSD? He's like, I'm going to throw it at people. Like, imagine getting hit with an LSD bomb. How hilarious is that? I'm like, I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibilities, you know? So roll me to see how well you make these bombs, because you're in a rush now because you're walking out the door. And he's like, fine. So he rolls, and he rolls kind of poorly. And I'm like, well, you make them, you get, you know, because he told me how many he wanted. And I'm like, I think it was like 6. And I'm like, well, you get 5. He's like, what happened to the 6th one? I'm like, it falls on the floor. And now you're hit. So you're affected by LSD 4, and I roll the dice, and it's like this long. And so he looks down at this one, and it's like, oh no, and then it's going to go off. And then when he looks up, everyone's going to be in a different art style, and that's where the book picks up with the new artist. And so it's going to be funny because, you know, they're going to Japan as well. So I want it to be bright colored. I want it to feel like a manga in a way.
Yeah.
I had toyed with the idea of reading it backwards, you know, doing all these different things, but I don't know if I want to go that route, only because that does kind of alienate some people. But I want that, like, you know, he gets hit, he looks up, and then everything changes. And that when that happened in the game, we literally stopped. We were laughing, and one of the guys was like, "Please tell me we can draw like in manga style or something after this." So it's like, he gets hit with a bomb. We're in Japan. Now all of a sudden he sees everything in Japanese. So it would just be like really funny to have that as a thing, as like a guest issue, you know. And it's the story, and that's kind of dumb too, because they're going to Japan to see a movie being made about them. And of course they're going to rip it apart because, oh, you know, like they're old heads. I want them to just be like the old heads when they go to, oh, that's not right. You know, I wouldn't say that. Oh, you know, that actor, you know, he needs to put on more muscle. Or like, I've been joking around because like the constant like thing is always like gender swaps. And it's like, why did they make Boulder? You know, like something we've talked about it just as like a funny, but I know some people could get a little bit hurt about it, but I think it would just be funny to have like one of them just randomly be female. And it's like, why did they change that? Like, I didn't okay that. And it's like, well, the studio came in and said, no, we need to hit this quota, you know, like something funny like that. And so they go to Japan, they see all this stuff. And that's like the storyline. And of course, like in the they're supposed to fight a kaiju in it. I don't know how far we're going to get with the game. I haven't edited it down to remove some of the stupidity.
Okay.
But in the game, they do fight a kaiju, and they win because some guy in a green suit shows up and has a flute. If you get the idea, it's like, Green Ranger kind of joke. We have to play with some of that just to not get sued by Hasbro and whoever owns all of that. But it would be just really funny to even have to insinuate some of it. So I'm working on that one. That one's 6 issues out, so I have some time. But just giving you an idea of like some of the stuff that happens in Crit, it's just a lot of fun.
This is incredible. This is an incredible sounding comic. Why are we showing the Kickstarter?
Yeah, let's get to the Kickstarter. I have some really cool covers. I'm really happy with how these came out.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. I do have a video.
Yeah.
Play the video.
I'm not sure we're going to hear the sound. I might hear from my end because I got my headphones up. I'm not sure, but we could try it.
You don't need the sound. It is.
Yeah.
Anybody that's watching this, you can go there. I did put some cool sounds to it, but you don't really need it. So we are also working with a guy who's in the industry. He's working on an Unreal Engine fighting game based on a lot of indie characters, and Crit will be in the game. So I was able to take some of that footage and cut it into a trailer, for Crit. So he's actually going to help me draw the next issue too. So we're working on an entirely animated trailer for the next one.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I never sleep.
You can sleep when you're successful. You can sleep then.
Yes, that is 100%. So, we funded in 45 minutes. The image that you're seeing, I'm about to swap it back out for the original. I love this King Arthur right here. It's done by Lewis Thomas, who is also the colorist of Crit. So he's an artist and a colorist. He had been doing a few covers for me, and I just called him one day and said, "Hey, it's really hard on me to draw and color everything. Would you be interested in taking over colors?" And this will be the second book we've worked on together, and he just does a phenomenal job. So really, I have the full image of King Arthur as we scroll down. But that I always start off with what is Crit. So if you're not familiar with it, you can kind of get a feel for what this universe is. And it is unpredictable, it is chaotic, and it's got a lot. It's got super villains, it's got robots, it's got your basic thugs, a lot of different sci-fi and fictional elements that could make anybody happy. If you scroll down just a little bit more, I go into, will you like it? Well, I'm kind of biased here, but I think you will. It's crime fighting vigilantes, a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor. It's got some detective and mystery stuff in it. If you like Guardians of the Galaxy, Police Academy, other guys, Beverly Hills Cop, one of the characters, Boulder, if you ask him who Boulder is like, he literally came to the table and said, "I want to be All Might, but if All Might was Eddie Murphy." So picture Eddie Murphy with All Might's powers. And if you're not familiar with All Might, he is like the quintessential superhero, all powerful, very strong, very, very righteous. But if you know Eddie Murphy, he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder sometimes, and so does Boulder. Bad Boys with superpowers. That's another good reference. It's kind of got some Deadpool, sarcasm. Clean jokes. It's a good read for just about everybody. If you like Suicide Squad, Cable, Deadpool, Buddy Cops, all that kind of stuff. So it's lighthearted fantasy with some sci-fi and a lot of humor. So check it out. If you scroll down a little bit more, we'll go into what this story is. Crit uncovered some stuff. They're always, Crit stands for constantly running into trouble. So they're constantly finding something. the world just kind of like unravels around them at all times, and they have to deal with it. And how do they handle it? So they're dealing with a new enemy called the Goblin King, who keeps messing with them in some way, shape, or form. And they've rescued someone. They're interrogating them to find, like, hey, what is really going on here? Because what's going on doesn't make sense to us. So give us some background. What's going on? And so that while they're interrogating that guy, there's another story being told from another perspective, going into King Arthur and how Crit really aren't heroes, because arguably they're not. They're still trying to figure out their powers and find themselves in this world.
Yeah.
And he tells the story of the true hero, King Arthur, the first true hero. And that's where our story is. And this is the main cover right here by Robert Nix. That is Shaw.
Wow.
He is, the story being told from his perspective. He's been a big, character. He's been in here since issue 0. He's their old boss. He's the guy that runs the company that they were working for when they got powers. And when he found out, he was like, well, now you're he's like, you're my newest product. You're superheroes. And of course that didn't work out. They didn't follow any of the rules that he put in place. And really, he's a DM character, and I would make all these plans and they would shoot them down and they would do their own thing. Now they're free agents and they contract with him, but they get to do whatever they want. So he's very frustrated with their performance, and he's telling one of his peers, who is, jealous that he arguably created Crit, and he's, well, you don't understand. Like, if you're trying to, because the other person really wants his own superhero team, and he's like, well, don't copy Crit. If you're going to try and do anything, go for the original, go for King Arthur, like aim for greatness, don't aim for mediocrity, because he thinks Crit is very mediocre, because they won't follow his orders. So that's Shaw. Now this is one version of King Arthur that is done by Mo Lubison. He's been on my covers since issue 2. He's done every book I've released, he's had one cover, and so that's cover B. And the next one, this is Matt Weldon. He's been on my book since issue 4, so this is his 5th cover for me. And that is a deluxe, so it'll be a foil, and it'll have some extra pages. And then the last cover right here, this is a wraparound, so that'll be the front and the back, and it'll be a foil. And then I have the metal cover. So Lewis just blew me away with his version of King Arthur there.
Wow.
And that one, he sent it to me, and I was like, well, I've been trying to figure out which one I want to do in metal, and now I know.
It looks spectacular. All the covers look spectacular, but this in metal, wow.
Yeah.
It really pops.
That is just, it's a cover.
Yeah, it's a cover.
Like, I when he sent that, he colored it. So the colors right there, that's the same kind of coloring that's in my book, and it's just phenomenal. I owe him big time. So fund the Kickstarter so I can pay this man. So I also remastered issue 1 this year, because it's the 5-year anniversary of that book. And like I said, I taught myself how to draw in order to do this. And I've always wanted to go back and revisit issue 1, because I don't dislike my art at all, but I always felt like we could do more. And some of the pages I colored, some a friend colored, some another person colored, and so it never felt like a complete thought because of how it was colored. And so I went in and I did all the flats over, and I had Nestor Radula, who does he colored a lot of the covers. I said, hey, if I do the flats, can you do the finishes, the shading, and the effects on a lot of this stuff? Because I just don't have the time to draw a book and do this and ship another book and publish 4 other books. And he just took it on and blew me away. So issue 1 will be a foil remaster. And also issue 1 is the only book I've ever done a cover for. So I don't know when I'm going to do a cover again, but that's the only one. And we also redid the end of issue 5. I was never really happy, the original artist of the end of issue 5. That's not me. I had this idea because it's a 60-page book. The last section is more of a prologue, and I wanted a friend of mine who I really like his art style. I wanted him to do it, and he had a lot of stuff going on. So unfortunately, like, he was very rushed to get this stuff done, and it wasn't his best work. I wasn't super happy with how it all came out, and so this year I went, with me rebranding everything and redoing a lot of stuff. I said, hey, Robert, who did the first cover, and he does a lot of my cover work for me, I said, would you want to redo these 12 pages, paid? I just think it's time that I get this looking good, because we're going to retail this year. We have a retail contract starting in July. Those books ship in October. And if this book's going to retail, I want the best product that I can give. So he's redoing these 12 pages. As you can see, it's a big update to the art style. He's still keeping some of the design choices, but he's updating the art.
Okay.
And so both of those are available on this Kickstarter as well. And then there's just a short little, letter from me telling you what C.R.I.T is, and thank you, because we've been doing this for 5 years, and every book gets funded, every book gets shipped, and people keep coming back. And it means a lot because, my friends and I didn't hang out for 10 years, and we were playing D&D together, wrote this book, and arguably, because of the comic and people being interested in the characters, it kind of helped carry the game so long that now we're in another game. And so we've been playing every month we're in 25, so 6 years.
Wow.
And for a tabletop group of 40-year-old men with wives, kids, and everything else in life, that's an impressive deed. So thank you, everybody, for that. Keeps coming back for more C.R.I.T. And then we have, I think the next is, previously on. So here you go. Here's every issue. The only issue that isn't in print is issue 0. It is a free download. It is in chapter 1. So if you get the trade paperback, it is printed there, but it's only 18 pages. And I either have to sell it for like $3 or $4, which is a really tough sell at a Comic-Con, because you got to break a 5.
Yeah.
So, or I like the pricing, I couldn't get the pricing, and it's such a short book. I said, well, I'm just going to put it as part of the trade paperback. That way, when you get the trade, you're getting a little extra content, and then you can download it for free and check it out. So here is, issue 1 through 7, all the main covers that I have for them. And actually really cool. So yesterday, issue 3 went on digital release for all of our platforms.
Wow.
And for New Comic Book Day, we released issue 3 on Drive-Thru Comics, and it was the best-selling book yesterday. So I thought that was really cool. And that's up against like Mad Cave and some big publishers. We took home the number 1. So I just thought that was really cool. So I'm officially a best-selling artist and writer.
I like that.
I text my dad. I'm like, your son's officially a best-selling writer and artist. And he just laughed. So, here's some of the interior work from book to book, just so you can see how we've grown. This is issue 1. Mm-hmm. And, like I said, we just remastered this. I'm really proud of how this one looks. Issue 2, which is now, this came out in 21, so this is a 4-year-old book. That page right there is the one my daughter laughed at, so I had to put it in the book. And, it's I can crash into them over and over and over again. She just could not stop laughing at that. Issue 3, I love this book. There's my ode to, the other guys. You know what we have to do? Aim for the bushes. Because Boulder is like, your super strong hero, and so he can land and not get hurt. Now Caliber is just a human, so jumping from a 5-story window, he'll definitely get hurt, but Boulder, he's fine.
Yeah.
And I love this page because this is, like I was telling you, they were doing a debrief, and Richter, their captain, is just like, do we really need the soundtrack? And Caliber's like, please don't take this little bit of joy away from me. And that happened at our table because he was playing music. I'm like, do we really need the soundtrack for this piece? And he's like, literally, this is the only happy moment of my day. Leave me alone. And here is insert song. I just love the dialogue here, and so I wanted to put that in the book so you guys can kind of see how silly we can be.
Oh man.
Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll see, insert song. What's insert song? Are you crazy? So,
Oh
and
my god.
yeah, and then like straight into action. So we have a lot of fun, but we also have a lot of superpowers and action and fireballs and things.
Yeah.
This page was just a lot of fun for me to draw, and seeing it colored in such an awesome, like, the purple flame is just, I love how that all that came together. And yes, I have a talking cat who smokes cigars, drinks rum, and has a top hat. Issue
How
6.
cool is that?
I'm very proud of issue 6. Issue 6 is 100% me. I drew it, I colored it, I lettered it. Everything is me. So, and I had never colored a book before, so I was really nervous. It took 3,000 hours to do that book, so I'm not doing another one like that for quite a while. But now, here you go. Here's one of my favorite panels from issue 7. Dr. Roombato gets put in there. Again, my guy was trying to build something. He rolled bad, so he got a Roomba with a robot body. And if you know cats, they hate vacuums. So when a cat meets a vacuum, he's like, peace out. And some action, some fun, suspense right there. The dialogue says it all. I swear to God, if I get to the end of this tunnel and there's 2 doors and they tell me that each one of them is lying, I'm putting a grenade in their mouth and walking away. It's a nod to Labyrinth if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
And now my add-on. So you can get every back issue on here. You can get the trade paperback, the remasters, and also Homebrewed issue 1 bundle. So if you want to check out all the other titles I publish, they're right there. Celestial Knight, Bigfoot Knows Karate, Caspian Porter, and Crit. Those will all be available on the Kickstarter. And I have rock glasses, because you're not allowed to call them whiskey glasses. So those on here, it was kind of cool. I saw them. I found a vendor for them. I designed them up and really liked how they looked. And so I think on the next Kickstarter, I'm going to do a second round of them. So like back in the day with Happy Meals, when you collected all the Batman glasses.
Ah, yes.
Yep. And then, of course, you can't have a Kickstarter without a T-shirt. And I mocked it up, and it defaulted on white. And I didn't want it on white. I wanted it on black. But I saw the white, and I was like, I don't know. I kind of like that,
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm going to give an option, black or white.
Yeah.
I'm going to get both. But
yeah. Exactly.
Now we are really close to the second unlock. So this one will do behind the scenes concept art, like my designs for King Arthur, some of the raw artwork, because how I do my art is I kind of just sketch it out, and then I'll send it to Robert Nix, and he'll send it back to me because he is my art editor. So you'll get some of those pages and some of those communications where he'll circle things or erase things and send it back to me. So hopefully we can hit that 3,500 soon. We do have 8 days. So my goal is really to get the collector cards, because those are done. I've already got them designed. I'd love to hit 4,000 and show you guys those cards. And now we can get into who Homebrewed Comics is. So I am the publisher. Drew on the top left, he is my co-publisher. And then Dan Price, who does Bigfoot Knows Karate, he's our marketing guy. And then we have Dennis Valencia, who will be taking up our Whatnot shows pretty soon. And we're just a bunch of guys that came together wanting to make comic books for everybody, for comic book fans. We just really love what we do. You get the passion and everything. And this is our first Kickstarter run as Homebrewed Comics, as this group. So if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see Homebrewed 0. These are the coupons you get. So when you do back a physical tier, when I ship my book in October, you'll get the top one. It'll have 3 numbers on it. Bigfoot, you back that one, you get 3 numbers. And then with Caspian and CK, that one is in June. So make sure you go and back theirs as well. You'll get all 9 digits. You'll go to the website, and the Homebrewed 0 is on there. It's listed as $1,000. You put that code in, it drops the price, and you get to fill out the form for us to ship you Homebrewed 0, which will be 30 pages of completely exclusive content for that book. And the cover is being done by the same guy who did that epic King Arthur cover that I have.
Mhm.
And that will be only 200 books. So make sure you get in on that.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
obviously, this is, yeah.
yeah, all the instructions are there. It's very simple. Just back 3 Kickstarters, and all you have to do is the basic tier. And each one is like anywhere from $8 to $10. So it's not breaking the bank.
Okay.
And, a lot of people ask, like, what's the risk of backing? Well, for one, you can actually read issue 0 for free. So you'll know if you like the book, at least our storytelling.
Yeah.
I've done 9 issues. I've fulfilled 8 of them. This is my 9th. I've had some delays with, printing and then shipping, like the normal stuff that you run into. I was very transparent on my last campaign. It was very late, but the day I launched my Kickstarter for that book, my wife asked me for a divorce. So that entire time I'm promoting a Kickstarter, I'm going through a divorce, I'm trying to find a place to live. And there was a 2-month period where every time I'd even look at my tablet to draw, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And so I did update everybody and said, hey, I just need some time to get my stuff together so I can finish this book. And it did take me a few extra months, but I got everything out. Everything's been fulfilled and everybody's happy. So, even in that kind of situation, I was able to complete a book and get it in everyone's hands. So believe me when I say this book will ship in October, whether or not I have to lose sleep or to get it done.
Well, yeah. Chris, this is a testament, obviously, to your commitment of, you know, creating and making sure you get a good product.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I thank you for everything. Please go over to homebrewedcomics.com. It has a link for all of our Kickstarters. You can download issue 0, sign up for the newsletter, check out all the other stuff we have on there. And, the big thing is you're supporting comic books made by comic fans and dedicated comic creators.
Absolutely. Chris, thank you for coming on. It was an honor to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I got to run on to my next show now.
Okay. You have yourself a good night, sir.
Thank you. You as well, everybody. Like I said, check out homebrewedcomics.com and support the indie comic scene, because you're getting, I keep saying this, but you're getting comics that people pour their blood, sweat, and tears into, and we all appreciate you, which is more than you get when you go and you spend $10 on Spider-Man, because we actually say thank you. So
Yeah.
have a good one. I'll talk to you later, and hit me up if you ever have a spot open. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, folks. We're almost about yeah. I'm sorry. We're almost at about that time before the evening closes. But as always, before we do go, I like to plug in my own stuff. As you know, I have my own comic book series, Codename Hunter. It's a sci-fi spy thriller. So if you love James Bond, you love Star Trek, Star Wars, Guardians of the Galaxy, this comic's for you. We currently have issue 1, 2, and 3 on indieplanet.com. We do have triplethreatcomics.com as well. I'm actually going to be working on next week. So, yeah, that's going to be exciting for that. And we also have my storefront, tpublic.com. So you just type in Lily in merch, and you can find all my designs. And one of my characters is Little Ian, this little guy here. And, of course, my Codename Hunter stuff. In fact, I got 3 shirts with the three covers. I'm currently working on issue 4 of Codename Hunter, as I said. I'm actually going to hand in the pages, the last setup pages, to my inker, Enrique Lopez. He's going to work his magic. We're going to be shooting for a release this summer, and I'm going to give you updates on my own Kickstarter when that's set up and all that, and that'll also be the summer. I will say that next week I'm going to take a little bit of a break. So the channel's going to go on a hiatus for just a week because I got to catch up on a lot of stuff I'm doing and also want to take a little break. But not to worry, folks. I'll be back the week after. Well, I think that's going to be it for us tonight. I'm Ian Miller, and this has been Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. Have a good night.